the Let's Go Live button. So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We do have some business to attend to today, and we can't get into it until we can get into it. And it looks like it's working, which is tremendous news. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun, deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today we are talking about presence and whether or not Donald Trump will be physically present in a trial that is coming up very soon. We're talking about next week, April 25th. There is a trial scheduled. I know many people were very focused on Dominion and Fox News and all of the other things, very important affair, but that is done and set aside. And Donald Trump is scheduled for a trial. This woman here, E. Jean Carroll, suing him less than 1 week away. Today, the trial is scheduled to start with jury selection. And so today I want to get a brief recap on the people involved, including George Conway. We learned a little bit about him last time. Roberta Kaplan, the lawyer, and of course, the billionaire backer, Reid Hoffman, who is funding and supporting a lot of this stuff. We'll go through that. Then I want to go through an update on the docket because they are fleshing out the jury selection process right now. I mean, this is going to be a civil trial, not a criminal trial. It involves defamation and allegations of assault. But Joe Tacopina, Trump's lawyer, was asking for some specific rules. This involves, obviously, the former president, current presidential candidate leading in the polls. Kind of a big deal. So he's saying, hey, we would like to get to the bottom of what the rules look like when we are picking the jury. So there's several different filings I want to go through. And then the last filing is the judge wants to know who is going to be here, who is going to show up physically present in court. Is Donald Trump going to sit there and look at the jurors in the eyes? Well, Trump and his team submitted a response, and we'll see what they say. All of that in the first segment. And then, my friends, in the second segment, we're going to get caught up on what's happening in Proud Boys trial. Day 58. Yesterday, we had some very interesting conversation about this person here was allegedly Zachary Real, who was pepper spraying police. See that right there? Now, we have the photograph. They talked a lot about this. But some person who never made it into trial. Oh, you see this person on the screen right there? Who's this fella? Oh, yeah. That's Ray Epps. You're kidding me. He pops into the picture again. Big surprise. So we'll go through all of that. Then we'll get caught up on day 58. Dominic Pezzola is on the stand. And so, my friends, as you can see, we have a lot to get to. And if you want to be a part of the program, the best place to do that, the best way to do that, is by joining up as a member at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Great place to join. We have an awesome community out here, and we'd love for you to see you here. We do morning-only streams, and we have member posts and all sorts of fun stuff. So they're chatting away right over here. We got C. Reed, Words Mean Things. Bonnie's in the house. Check us out at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And also, if you are a YouTube member, you can join us on the Telegram group. Don't forget to grab the link in the post section. And now, before we get into the program, we have to be properly fortified and nutrified and healthy with our greens because we would all like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds. Summer's coming up. But how sick are you with all the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets? I know we've been there. We've all done that. And they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. We know that proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look healthier and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next doctor's checkup when he looks at you and says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever it is you're doing, keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com. Get your real organic superfood. Remember, the vegetables want to be eaten. It's filled with your daily servings of fruits and vegetables. It tastes great, tastes delicious going down. So check them out at fieldofgreens.com. And don't forget to use code Robert. All right. And hey, I want to give an ultra shout out to our friend Dolphin Fan, who gifted 5 memberships in the house. Thank you very much, Dolphin Fan, who is inviting members to come and join us. and our chats are much busier due to very generous contributions from people like Dolphin Fan on YouTube. And so make sure, if you're a YouTuber who just joined us, that you grab the private Telegram link and come say hello. All right. And so now, my friends, let's get right into it. Get into the meat and potatoes on the day. The Trump trial looms. It's right around the corner. In fact, scheduled for April 25th. And we know that when Trump goes to court, it's kind of a big ordeal. We saw what happened the last time he was in New York City, kind of brought the whole city to a screeching halt, and the whole country came to a pause. But Trump is scheduled for trial. This is a civil trial involving E. Jean Carroll. And the judge wants to know who's going to show up here, who's going to physically be present. Is E. Jean Carroll going to be there? And secondarily, is Donald Trump going to be there? Trump and his team are hinting at yes, unless they get their way and the judge gives an inclusion of a particular instruction. So we'll break all that down. But first, let's talk about this actual case. What the heck is going on here? E. Jean Carroll is the person who brought this lawsuit. It was brought in about 2019, right around that era. And it was delayed for many, many years. People were asking, why didn't this get brought up anytime more recent or sooner, back to the date of the event? But it involves E. Jean Carroll. She's allegedly a victim of an assault that took place in a department store back in 1995, right? And the complaint was filed. I'll just share a quick snippet of this. You can see what it looks like here. We don't have any red pen action on this, but it's 29 pages. She filed it some time ago in November of 2022, but actually before that, when Trump was president, and this is sort of it's rejuvenating an old case because Trump was president and everything got put on hold there for a little bit of time. So the case is rejuvenated and it came back. And there was a lot of question about how this case originated in the first place and why did it come about? Because E. Jean Carroll, according to her, this happened back in the 1990s. Why did it take so long? Well, it has to do with these people. A lot of people were saying, sue Trump, just sue Trump, just go after him. You'll get a lot of money. You'll get a lot of prestige. Everybody will be thrilled about it. And she said, no, there's no basis. There's no reason to do it. Until she met this guy called George Conway. George Conway sat down with her, known TDSer, known hater of Donald Trump, and said that, hey, I think you do have a valid claim and you should sue. And she said, really? You do? And he said, yeah, I do. She said, do you have a lawyer? Guess what? He did. Ready to go. Her name was Roberta Kaplan. Roberta Kaplan said, I'd love to work on this case, grabbed the case, started representing E. Jean Carroll. The lawsuit was filed. This lawsuit has been going on for a long time, lots of litigation, lots of legal time, lawyers, right, spending a lot of time and effort to investigate these claims. And that costs money and nobody works for free. So what is happening with the funding, right? This is a contingency case, which means the lawyers are really only technically getting paid if they win, but somebody still has to fund this and pay for the costs and the expenses up until the trial. And who is doing that? Well, we learned that the attorney, Roberta Kaplan, communicated over to Alina Abba that that person's name is Reid Hoffman, billionaire founder of LinkedIn, somebody who detests Donald Trump and has created several different organizations to stop him from succeeding, is funding the lawsuit and funding the litigation. So we've got a lot of questions about this lawsuit. Is it legitimate? I mean, it's very old. Is it being brought without bias? Is it really being brought to secure a victory for E. Jean Carroll? Or is this brought by partisan people who are trying to use this lawsuit as a cudgel, as a sword against Donald Trump in the ongoing battle of lawfare that we've been covering here for ages as it comes and relates to Donald Trump? So the lawsuit is right around the corner. Let's take a look at the docket and see what it says. There is a lot of activity going on. The trial is right around the corner. You see, today there was a recent filing. So this is brand new since the last time I refreshed it. Letter from Roberta Kaplan. We also have a letter from Trump's lawyer, Joseph Tacopina. And we have several different rulings that came in, all different letters. But the big thing we're talking about right now is jury selection. Because if trial is starting next week, we're going to need to get a jury pretty quickly. And the jury is going to be related to a Trump case. And we know how that goes. So let's take a look now at the actual request. This came in from Trump's lawyers. You see, this was drafted and sent into the court on April 14th. We're talking about jury instructions. Short document was filed in a response. This comes out from Joseph Tacopina, Trump's lawyer, and he says, "Dear Judge, I am here by and through counsel undersigned, and I respectfully submit this letter requesting that the court conduct jury selection using procedures outlined herein, including the use of a written questionnaire. We want to have them fill this out so we can read through it." They say, "We also would like you to reconsider and modify a prior order that allows the attorneys to access the names of the jurors so that they can investigate these people and learn a little bit more about them. Look at their social media, look at their, what they post, what they say, all the things they do so they can investigate them." They say, "As set out more fully below, the relief sought by this motion is necessary in light of the exceptional circumstances of this case, and it's going to increase the chance that Trump gets a fair trial." So we want to know the names of these people so we can go look into them. And we want to know what they know in a written questionnaire so that we can parse through them. The judge has responded to this, says the following. Says, "Mr. Trump's motion to employ a written juror questionnaire in selecting the jury is denied. The court makes only these points as a matter of emphasis, saying, look, the motion was made without regard for the fact that we already stated that we're not going to use a jury questionnaire. In other words, I already ruled on this. Don't ask again." But here they say, as the court made clear in April 10th, 2023, the law in this circuit is abundantly clear that the use of written jury questionnaires is entirely optional with the trial judge. What is required is that an appropriate voir dire, by whatever means is used, he says that will be done. He says, "I'm going to do voir dire. I don't need to do it your way. I'm going to do it my way." This motion also proposes the use of a questionnaire that is notwithstanding the court's ruling that an anonymous jury is going to be used. And so here, the court denies the party's request to access the names. Nothing between now and then has changed. Judge Lewis Kaplan, right? In other words, he's telling Trump's team, you guys have already asked about this stuff, and I've already defended this stuff, and there's nothing else that I'm going to do about it. So that was on that order. Now, there was another order from this court in response to another filing. So Trump's lawyers submitted this one April 17th, this week, and they said, "Dear Judge," they say, "as counsel for Donald Trump, we write to inquire as to your court plan for conducting jury selection." Says, "We wanted to do the written questionnaire. You said no. We wanted to get their names. You said no. So what's the plan?" On March 29th, counsel were generally advised by the clerk that Your Honor, you plan to assemble about 100 potential jurors in the assembly room and tell them what the case is about. Like, this is your plan. The deputy clerk then indicated that Your Honor, the judge, would ask whether the jurors could be impartial, with the view that only about 15 jurors might be struck. The deputy clerk also indicated that Your Honor would not ask that many questions during the voir dire in the courtroom, and that the entire jury selection process would only take 1 to 2 hours. They say it was unclear, which is very short for a case of this magnitude, because there are a lot of questions. Do you know Trump? Do you have any biases against Trump? Are you, politically motivated? Who'd you vote for? These types of things. And not that you could ask those questions, but that's what that's what the attorneys are trying to extract out of the jurors. They say that it's unclear from this discussion, Your Honor, whether counsel would be present even in this process while the judge is asking questions of the jurors. We don't even know if we're going to be able to be there or have input in the court's description of the case or have our opportunity to answer questions. Therefore, Trump's team says we seek clarification on these points. And also, given the parties involved in this case, the attendant publicity surrounding it, the sensitivity of the issues involved, the possibility of political bias, we believe that a robust jury selection process is necessary and in the interest of justice. Now, the judge responds, and this judge is giving them some attitude. Okay, this is 2 memos back to back where we get some attitude. He says, all right, listen, Trump lawyer. He says, I take what I understand to be material inaccuracies in Mr. Tacopina's letter to be misunderstandings attributable to the fact that Tacopina was not present at the meeting attended by the other lawyers. All right. He's saying, we already talked about this there, dum dum. They know how this works. So he says, nevertheless, we're going to give you the following information about what's happening coming up on Tuesday. This is next week. The judge says the entire jury selection process will take place in the courtroom, scheduled for trial in the presence of counsel for both sides. Lawyers will be there in the courtroom, the entire thing, as it would be inconvenient to accommodate the entire panel in that room one at a time. Part of the panel will be held in a reserve room under the appropriate court supervision, and they'll see and hear all related proceedings absent any sidebars. So the room's not big enough for everybody. So they're going to spread them out a little bit across a couple locations. The judge says from time to time, it may be appropriate to bring prospective jurors from the reserve room to replace them who've been excused in the other room. So we have a big room where the main jurors will be. When they get excused, we may take people from the overflow room and bring them into the main room. The replacement prospective juror will then be voir dired, asked questions, in the presence of all counsel once they're brought into the courtroom and seated. This is identical to how we handled juries during COVID. Counsel for both sides have been requested to submit proposed voir dire questions, and both have done so. And so the court is naturally taking those requests into account prior to its examination. So the judge is saying, I'm not going to let you ask questions. I'll ask the questions. You send me your questions, and I'll be the person who decides whether to ask them or not. Moreover, at the completion of the examinations and the specific jurors, counsel will have a further opportunity to suggest questions. All right, so the judge is going to be doing the questioning. Counsel will direct their questions to the judge. They'll all be there in the courtroom. They've got an overflow room, and the judge is going to use the same policies they used during COVID, even though we still don't have didn't Biden say that was over or something? All right, so that is interesting. Now, the judge is giving us some clarity what's going to be happening on Tuesday, and the judge also wanted to know about whether they were going to be present or not. So a big question, of course. Who's going to show up for this thing? Who's going to physically be there? Is E. Jean Carroll going to be there? And is Donald Trump going to be there? Because remember what happens when Donald Trump comes into town, things get a little bit squirrely. This was filed by E. Jean Carroll's lawyers, Kaplan, Hecker, Fink, LLP. They're in New York. April 18th, they say, Dear Judge Kaplan, we write pursuant to your honor's order dated in April to inform the court that E. Jean Carroll will be present throughout the trial. Respectfully submitted, Robert Kaplan. And Roberta Kaplan is the attorney representing E. Jean Carroll, obviously. So now the next question, is Donald Trump going to appear for trial? His lawyers say he certainly wants to. April 19th, this was drafted, sent out of Joseph Tacopina's office, lawyer for Donald Trump, short memo, 2 pages. It says, Dear Your Honor, well, in light of the court's order requesting counsel to advise whether their respective clients will be present throughout the trial, they say, Judge, we think it's necessary to bring the following concern to your honor's attention, given the unique status of our defendant client, Donald Trump, as a former president. He says specifically, as counsel who appeared with defendant Trump during his recent arraignment in New York Supreme Court in People versus Trump indictment number ending in 23, says, I have personal knowledge of the logistical burdens associated with Trump appearing in a courtroom, much of which was witnessed on televised broadcast. We watched it here. As a former president, the defendant was always accompanied by approximately a dozen Secret Service agents. The FDR drive was shut down for a significant amount of time while he traveled to the courthouse. The courthouse itself was frozen while he was there. And the streets within a 3-block radius of the courthouse were all blocked off. Trump's appearance at the SDNY in connection with this matter, Your Honor, that would result in similar logistical and financial burdens upon New York City, its residents, and the court. And so they say, with respect to the latter, in order for defendant Trump to appear, his movement would need to be coordinated preliminarily with the Secret Service and their advance team hours beforehand each day that he's present. And that tactical plan needs to be developed. So, in other words, we better get onto this. As part of the plan, according to the Secret Service, courthouse floors would need to be locked down, elevators shut down, courthouse personnel confined to their offices, and members of the public restricted from the area. Although defendant Trump wishes to appear at trial, in order now, this is an interesting paragraph, right? What we're seeing here is Trump flexing a little bit. They wanted a continuance in this trial. They don't want this trial to be going right now. And a big part of my question is, are they going to settle this in any way? We know that many of these lawsuits are political in nature. They're funded by billionaires. They're suggested by anti-Trumpers. They've been using lawfare for a long time. But does that mean they wouldn't settle for a bunch of money? Like, if the Trump organization just paid them off, would they go away? What would they accept? Or is this more than about the money? Do they want pain? Now, they write this. They say, although defendant Trump wishes to appear at trial, he wants to go. He wishes to be here, Judge. And I still have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea of Donald Trump, former president, current presidential candidate, leading, sitting in a courtroom looking at jurors who are weighing his fate in the eyes, wondering how that would go. So Trump says, look, I'd love to appear in order to avoid the burdens that we've talked about above. If he does not do so, we respectfully request that the court give the jury a special preliminary instruction. Here's what they want the judge to inform the jurors, saying, while no litigant is required to appear at a civil trial, the absence of the defendant in this matter by design avoids the logistical burdens that his presence as the former president would cause the courthouse and New York City. Accordingly, his presence is excused unless and until he is called by either party to testify. So that's what they're saying. They're basically saying, Your Honor, you might want to include this paragraph or else, like, if you include what we want you to include, then we're going to save this area a whole lot of time and Secret Service and shutting down the courtrooms and all the things. So why don't you just include that paragraph and just let us know? Now we'll see what Roberta Kaplan says, and we'll see what Judge Roberta says and what Judge Kaplan says. Judge Kaplan, Lewis Kaplan here, because the judge, I think it might rub him the wrong way a little bit. We'll see what he says. But basically, Trump is saying, put this paragraph in or I'm going to show up. And if he shows up, then there's going to be some problems for the court. We'll see what the judge does. Now, trial is scheduled for April 25th. Of course, we will be here. We'll see if there's going to be any updates. I'm going to guess that we're going to see a lot more filings here in the next few days, and we'll see if this settles or not. But it's been a little bit of a slow development. Trial is right around the corner on Tuesday of next week. And so we'll be here. Thank you for joining us as we cover it. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button. Thank you for liking this video wherever it is you're watching it. And we'll look forward to seeing you as we carry on. All right, my friends. Now, we got a good update on that one. Now let's turn our attention over to the Proud Boys and see what's happening in Proud Boys trial. Day 58 continues. We have Dominic Pezzola, one of the Proud Boys, who was charged with the crimes here in this trial, on the stand testifying. And as usual, we're going to check in with rparloff over on Twitter, who is live tweeting from within the courtroom. But you remember on yesterday's show, we talked about day 57, and there was some very interesting testimony that we heard. And the government pulled out this image and they said, hey, Mr. Zachary Real, is that you? You're a defendant in this case. And all of a sudden, we've got this image, and it looks like it's Zachary Real, and he's got a little thing in his hand. And it looks like maybe, according to the government prosecutor, there's a piece of spray coming out of here. It could be, according to him, that this was a handheld camcorder that he was just recording, pointing it at somebody, or he's pointing pepper spray and spraying pepper spray at people in the crowd. And so they made a big deal about this yesterday, and we had a lot of cross-examination over this and motions and all sorts of things. But one interesting thing that you see here is this fella. Don't you notice him? Ray Epps. Very strange. This guy keeps popping up all over the place. And if you remember, Ray Epps was on the FBI's most wanted list as a violent wanted person, not just a jaywalker. He was on the violent list. He was right in there, standing, according to the government, next to the Proud Boys, watching, hanging out while all of this was going on. Now, a lot of other people are sort of masked up and covering their faces. Ray Epps was not. Isn't it weird? He just keeps popping up. He was in the Capitol. He was there the night before saying go into the Capitol. He's got a history of being involved with the Oath Keepers, which is also another group that got charged with crimes. It's very weird, convicted of crimes related to January 6th. All of these similar indicia. He was deposed in a patty cake game with the January 6th Select Committee, and he is not being charged with anything. And neither are a lot of other people who are very symbolic, very similarly situated to Ray Epps. Ray Epps just happens to be a symbolic figure that at this point symbolizes federal informants or other assets that were there that we don't know the full story about, and it doesn't make sense. One of the pieces just doesn't fit. There it is, right there. His name's Ray Epps. What's the story? We don't know. But we're going to jump back in to Proud Boys trial, day 58, courtesy of rparloff, and he's going to get us started. He says, it's April 19th, day 58, Proud Boys trial. We're resuming direct examinations of Dominic Pezzola. He gives us a brief on what happened yesterday. During cross-examination, and we read through most of this, the government showed a second video of a man dressed like Real, seemingly for all the world to spray the officer with pepper spray. That's the image we just looked at. Real said the man might be holding an Osmo digital recorder, sort of like a handheld, camera. Now, at the same time, Real, when he was on the stand, also hedged about whether he'd assaulted anyone. He said, you were spraying in the direction of police officers near that tower, weren't you? Something like, I don't recall being near the tower. Pezzola took the stand later on in the day, and he fell on the sword for the entire Proud Boy organization and the people in trial. Pezzola took to the stand and he said, I accept responsibility for my actions, referring to everything. And the judge ended the testimony in the middle of some emotional explanation about everything that he lost during COVID. Now, they're talking about some disputes that they may get into. Rogers tells us when the judge comes out, he's probably going to rule again on allowing evidence in about whether Pezzola lied to the FBI once, maybe twice, and maybe made up a story about a co-defendant called Joe Biggs. Remember, Joe Biggs is sitting right next to him. They're trying to say that Pezzola lied to the FBI, tried to maybe set up Joe Biggs and say he's responsible for all this stuff. And why would they do that? To make sure that his credibility is shattered. We see the government wants to imply that Pezzola is lacking in credibility. This could be complex because in Pezzola explaining why he lied, he might get into the fact that he's in custody, right? He's sitting in custody. The other defendants are sitting in custody. The jurors don't know they're sitting in custody. And we try to keep the jurors from knowing that because if the jurors know that they're in custody, they may just think, well, they're already in custody, so I'll just keep them in custody. And if they're already in custody, then it means they must be dangerous. And so the jurors will fill in the gaps and just say, well, they must be guilty. They're already in jail. I'll leave them in jail. So you don't want them to really know that. Stephen Metcalf says, the attorney for Dominic Pezzola, he also outlined yesterday about what Dominic was say about to the FBI. And we're in the home stretch. Wow. Roger says, we may even get to closing arguments, maybe even tomorrow. Whew. Yeah, it's been a long one. Judge Kelly is now on the bench. All rise. Please be seated. Judge says, all right. What a long night. He says, all right, well, look, I've been doing some reading and some thinking, and I've decided that I am going to be admitting these two exhibits. I conditionally admitted them yesterday. These are two videos showing somebody dressed like real pepper spraying police in the face. Judge says, yeah, that seems relevant and pertinent information, so I'm going to let it in. It makes the defense look terrible, so he's perfect. Comes right in. He also says, second, about Pezzola and the false statement to the FBI. He says, given that no party is going to claim this true, this lie that Pezzola said to the FBI, given that nobody is going to claim this is true, the government will make clear they don't think this is true, and I'll instruct them that there's no evidence that Biggs had a gun. Given that those safeguards, given those safeguards, I'm not going to grant Metcalf's application because I think the details of the lie are important. The jury needs to hear that. He says if Pezzola takes the stand and puts blame on his attorney, you'll have to be very careful if you don't want to engender a rebuttal witness from the government, whether it's a former lawyer or someone else. He says, I'm going to give a limiting instruction about there's no evidence Biggs had a gun, and neither party contends Biggs has a gun. Prosecutor says, that's fine. I'll say that. That's fine. We can tell the jury nobody had a gun. Dan Hull says, Mr. Pattis and I were wondering if you could go further and tell the jury it's not true. The judge says, I'm not going to go that far, but I will tell them neither party contends that there was, in fact, a gun. All right. They're getting very granular. He says, can you say that it's not true? No, I'll say nobody says it was, in fact, a gun. Okay. Hop on a sidebar. That's over. Carmen Hernandez is now asking the judge to order the government to tell her the source of one of the videos that was used. She says, okay, well, Your Honor, if you're admitting this video, tell them that I need to know where they got this video. Order the government to give me the source of the video. She renews a request for additional materials that the government may have as well about other people. Real's companion, Isaiah Giddings, he pleaded guilty yesterday. And apparently, in December, Giddings said that his understanding was that Real asked other rioters if they had bear spray and did not obtain bear spray, but that if he had gotten the bear spray, he would have deployed it against the police. So they're trying to bring in another document to say there was no bear spray. While Real did not obtain any bear spray, Giddings believed that had Real gotten the spray, he would have deployed it against the police. So in other words, they're trying to show that there's this other defendant who already took a guilty plea, who's already admitted to his conduct, case closed on him. And in his statement, in his testimony, he was saying Real did not obtain bear spray. Shortly after the Proud Boys arrived at the Capitol, they crossed the perimeter. Giddings followed into the Capitol, followed the crowd, including Real, Biggs, and others. On the west side, Proud Boys were fighting. Real got angrier than Giddings had ever seen him. He was right in the face. He yelled aggressively. At one point, Real asked other rioters, hey, you guys got bear spray? Says Real. While Real did not obtain any bear spray, Giddings believed that had Real gotten the spray, he would have deployed it against the police. So Carmen is saying, well, that's in their own, that's their person. Basically, this person pled guilty and they're using some of his testimony against the Proud Boys, saying even he is saying that there was no bear spray or pepper spray. Prosecutor says, yeah, you know what, Judge? We looked into that further, and we do not believe that Giddings has made any substantive statements that were not previously captured. Now, I see a distinction here, right? So there's a big difference here. And I don't know if the prosecutor keyed onto this, but I would. This would be if, right, they're talking about bear spray here. And what was in Real's hand, it didn't really look like bear spray. So you would say, okay, it's mace, right? It's not bear spray, it's handheld mace. Spraying them with what he believed to be mace. So a prosecutor would say Giddings was only talking about bear spray, didn't say anything about mace. Maybe Real got his hands on some mace. Let's see if the prosecutor grabbed that. Says, we don't believe that Giddings has made any substantive statements that were not previously captured. And apparently we move on. Hernandez says the video the government played over and over and over again to the jury. If you play it without slowing it down, frame by frame, it just flies by and you can't see it. So apparently it's that same video where the one that we just looked at. But if you play it quickly, you don't see any sprays. If you slow it frame by frame, apparently you see the spray. The video in this case, both parties have paused and slowed down. Roger is comparing it to the Zapruder film. Zapruder, right? Zapruder? That's how you say that? That's the Kennedy assassination film. Zapruder. Though anyone under 30 may not know what I'm talking about. I do. I'm not under 30. So yeah, that's the Kennedy film. Here, by the way, as the colloquy continues, is a screen grab I've taken of a portion of the video that shows the man that looks like real, black goggles, neck gaiter, and black jacket right here, extending the arm past Ray Epps and aiming something at the camera, right? And they're saying that there's a little bit of a spray coming out, but I'm not sure I believe that. This might be like something on this guy's back. You could have artifacts here. I don't know what it is, but again, that you could say that is mace, not bear spray. And, I think bear spray, right, it's a much bigger container because it's a bear, right? So you're dealing with something that's not handheld. If it was bear spray, you'd say it was much, further down. So the judge is taking a break. Says, all right, we got those preliminaries out. We're going to go out for a break and then we'll bring the jury out. So they do that. Jury's back. Now the judge is back on the bench. Before the jury comes in, the judge tells Dominic, he says, all right, hey, Dom, you're going to get up here and testify. If you're going to talk about being currently incarcerated, just don't say that, okay? He says, if you want to say that you made statements while you were incarcerated, that's fine, but just don't say you're currently incarcerated because we don't want the jury to know what we're doing to you. So Stephen Metcalf resumes direct examination of defendant Dominic Pezzola. This is the defense attorney. Pezzola's back on the stand. Defense says, good to see you again, Dominic. He says, yeah, good to be here. So yesterday we spoke of an incident in Rochester in 2020. You remember that? Yeah. Tell me about it. He says, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a very scary time. 2020, COVID, the whole world's melting down, national lockdown. It's a mess. Work was slow, to say the least, he said. He said, my wife was working, but she wasn't making very much money. So I was the main supporter of the house. I was watching my city burn, my job trailer burn, my work was being canceled. This is the first time in my life, says Dominic, that I was scared that I wouldn't be able to support my family. Defense says, I understand. So with all of that, let's switch over to January 6th. Tell me what happened. He said, well, I went home after DC. News was everywhere. I couldn't escape it. I heard that the FBI was looking for me to talk. My wife heard that. She freaked out. She told me I had to leave. She said, you got to get out of here. I don't want the FBI coming to my house and kicking my door down and scaring my kids. So what happened? He says, I went to, I think, maybe to the American Legion. A couple members just told me to go there. I just freaked out. He said, I called my wife. I think maybe she told them that I shouldn't come home. He said, when you find out you got the federal government coming after you, you kind of go into freak out mode. All right. He says, one chapter member gave me some money, took my phone. I didn't argue with him. At the time, I thought I'd get it back, but I just wasn't even thinking. The judge says, all right, hey, Dominic, slow down. Okay. Slow down. Metcalf, slow down. Pezzola continues. He says, so then I went to a friend's house in Buffalo. I went there and I stayed there for a few days. Says, I knew I'd have to talk to the FBI, and that probably meant I'd be getting arrested. I knew I wasn't getting off scot-free for this, so I took a bus over to Philadelphia. Defense says, all right, hold on a minute. I want to go back a little bit. So we're talking about after January 6th. He says, before January 6th, you heard of talk of a trip to Carolina with the Shield? Talk about that. He said, okay, yeah. He says, me and my friend, his name's Casper. He's a Proud Boy I was associated with 2 chapters. And so I went with my buddy called Casper from the Syracuse chapter. He was starting a new job and he wanted to get away for a bit. Work was slow. I had one guy, I let him handle work. I had another friend. His name was Reaper. He was making the shield. He made the black and the yellow Proud Boy shield, the handheld one. And he said New York was under extreme lockdown at the time. Everything was closed. Churches were closed. Businesses were closed. Gyms were closed. All of the healthy things to do were closed. Everything was closed. All right, I'll digress. I better get back on track. He said, we went to get away for a little bit. So we stopped in Philadelphia to meet Casper's friends. Are these the same people you went to stay with after January 6th? He says, yeah. Well, why did you go there after January 6th? He says, we met there during that trip. We got along. They said if I ever needed to stay that I could. No problem. Says, were you on the run after January 6th? Dominic says, well, I wouldn't say that I was on the run. I was trying to get my business going. I was looking for an attorney. I intended to turn myself in at the attorney's office, and that's what I ultimately did. I'm trying to schedule work for my one guy. I spent $1,000 for an attorney retainer, and he's got nothing, man. Says he's going back to. The defense says, all right, Dominic, I want to go back to the North Carolina trip. Is there anything else that you remember? Did you meet Bertino? What happened when you met Bertino? Yeah, he says, I was going to see Bertino, but that was an afterthought. I mean, the reason for going was my friend had some friends in North Carolina. The guy making the shields was supposed to go, but he got COVID, of course. And so I filled in and I went down there. We had a bonfire down there. And I brought a shield down for Bertino to deliver him to Enrique, And so when you were with Bertino, how long were you there for? I stayed for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. What'd you guys talk about? Well, we discussed the recent stabbing, actually. He showed us his wound. He got stabbed. I talk about maybe moving down there to California. He said he liked living in South Carolina. Found out he was from Rochester, New York, where I'm from, and we actually had a lot of the old buddies together. We grew up on the same streets, same parties, but our paths had never crossed. Small world. So we stopped at his house on New Year's Eve. We were there about an hour. On the way back, we stopped at a different house, different Proud Boys who I didn't know. We spent New Year's there. And then we went back to Philadelphia. It says, when did Bertino add you to the chat, the main chat, the Ministry of Self-Defense chat? Pezzola says, January 2nd, maybe 3rd. Maybe on the drive home, he sent a message saying he added me to the chat. We were making this chapter to make sure, people don't get stabbed anymore. Defense says, okay, well, let me show you a chat here. Let me show you this specific bit here. Is that the earliest you were added right here on the screen? He says, yeah, I believe it was. It was nighttime when I was getting back to New York. And how many of these chats were you a part of? Asks the defense. Pezzola says, well, there's only one MOSD chat, just this MOSD op, which ended up becoming the main. And then there was a main 2, he said. Well, I think the main 1 just became the main 2. And he says, what about boots on the ground? He says, well, I think it was January 5th at night. So they're talking about all these different chat groups. Defense says, would you read every single chat that comes by? No, gosh, he says, no. Like I say, I have a life. Says I would never sit there through hundreds of messages, mostly idiotic, pointless stuff. That's not what happens on our Telegram. Ours is very insightful, and it's for members only. So become a member on Locals or on YouTube and join our Telegram chat. Not idiotic at all, no. Very insightful and astute observations with very intelligent people. But the defense says, what was one thing that you did write in these chats? Did you say some things? He said, yeah, I wrote a couple idiotic things. Ha, 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 the only message. He says, I remember reacting to, he said, ha, ha, ha was the only message I remember reacting to. And that was a couple of days before we headed out. I thought my plans had fallen through with the guys from my chapter. So I said, hey, anyone have a room? Enrique saw it. And I said, hey, I think these guys have a room. Only time I ever directly communicated with Enrique, just to figure out a room. Defense says, okay. Well, I want to go back to November, the first time that you came to Washington, D.C. You remember that time? He says, yes. Well, it was since I was about 8 years old. I think it was the first rally after the election. So maybe he said I came to DC when I was, first when I was 8. And I came back. I think it was the first rally after the election. I was expecting a good time. Like most people there on Trump's side, I thought that there was some injustice done. I went there to support our candidate. So I drove down and I saw people randomly walking to the Freedom Plaza, I think it was. I ended up coming across a group of men in black and yellow, and I knew who they were. I said, "Hey, any New York guys around here?" I introduced myself and ended up joining up with them, and I did meet a New York City guy. "Oh, you met somebody from New York?" asks the defense. "Was his name Dick Sweats?" Real name. He says, "Yeah. Yeah, I met him." "Who, Dick Sweats?" "Yeah, I met him. Yeah." He told me that they'd stopped vetting people because of an influx of people. Said that they'd passed my name to a local guy in Rochester, and he told me about my application. So I telegrammed Dick Sweats. I said, "I met you in DC, having a hard time getting a hold of anyone in my chapter. Could you put in a good word for me?" Sweats forwarded the message to William Pepe of the Hudson Valley chapter. I'm wondering if that's Pope, William Pope. Hudson Valley chapter. He passed it along to Central New York, which wasn't really my location, but they accepted it. So he gets admitted. The defense says, "So, Dominic, did you get into did you get into fights in November?" Pezzola says, "No, but I did see what happened that night. In the hotel room, I heard sirens. I looked out into the phone and I see video after video of Antifa or whoever, left wing protesters just brutalizing Trump supporters." Now I want to go back to December. Tell me about your status as a Proud Boy. "Oh, well, by then I was a first degree Proud Boy. And so I went down with a couple of guys from my chapter. We were informed that there'd be a speech that night. And Enrique Tarrio, Mr. Tarrio, gave a speech. We knelt at a prayer, and that was it. At concerts, I always make my way up to the front to get the best seat in the house. And so I made my way to the front so I could hear Tarrio's speech." And he said, "And Bertino ended up getting stabbed at some point." And he said, "That was the next night, actually. Yeah, me and my others were hanging out in a hotel room. And then people were messaging me at a meeting at Harry's. Something was going on. There was a shouting match with Antifa or something. At Harry's, there were like 1,000 Proud Boys there. They were in a bar. They were on that corner. And I was with maybe a half a dozen members from my chapter. And so I hooked up with Pepe and Caspar. And there was an interaction with them and Antifa. And so it was boring. I like boring, lame. So I ended up walking back to the bar. And then suddenly I heard, 'He's stabbing people,' or something like that. I go, 'What? He's stabbing people?' And so Harry's is on an intersection. And so the whole intersection was shut down, like there were people in the streets. He says, 'I didn't see Bertino get stabbed.' I mean, he got stabbed a couple hundred yards away from Harry's, so maybe half a block down. And so I turned to see what was going on, and there was a scuffle. I saw this guy running towards us, and I thought, 'He's the guy.' And I started running up to see what was going on. And so a couple of other got him to the ground. And I was holding him on the ground, putting my weight on him. And the cops came. I got pepper sprayed directly in my eyes, those cops. So I jumped off. I was blinded for about 45 minutes. I had a motorcycle helmet that I dropped. I didn't hit the guy with the helmet. Someone said that earlier in the trial that he did. So I didn't hit him with the helmet. I just held him down. And you wrote to everybody on one of these chats? He said, "Yeah, I was a little pissed. I was trying to help, do my civic duty, and I was the one that got pepper sprayed for it. That's why I was so mad." And you were on Parler at a time, right? You were also on Parler. Before January 6th, were you big into politics? He says, "No, no, I only voted like twice in my whole life. I became interested in Trump. To me, it was just all politics. He could say ridiculous stuff sometimes, but I'm a veteran, and I believe in peace through strength. The same strategy that Reagan implemented. He wanted borders secured because the drugs were getting out of control." Defense says, "Dominic, before COVID, did you follow politics closely?" "No, not at all. I became interested in Trump." He says, "I'm a businessman. I liked his policies. I had a Parler account before the Proud Boys, only like, 40 to 50 followers." "Did you follow Enrique Tarrio?" "Yeah." "Did he follow you?" "No." "Did you follow Rufio?" "Yeah." He says, "I don't believe I followed Rufio or Joe until after the first rally in December. I still didn't know who they were. Tarrio had reposted them, I think, so I thought that's cool, so maybe I followed him." The defense attorney says, "All right, Dominic, I want to show you this exhibit. It's a Biggs Parlor message. Did you follow Big?" He said, yeah, I did. He had 63,000 followers. He had a lot of followers. And I want to show you your account, Dominic. What does this say? How many followers do you have? He says 54. Only 54, which is very respectable, okay? 54, we all start from zero, all right? So 54 is nothing to be ashamed about. Did these other guys follow you? No, they didn't even follow him back. So they want to move on to January 6th now. He says, okay, that's unbelievable. How can you have a seditious conspiracy if you're not even following each other on social media? What kind of a conspiracy group is that? Weak. Defense says, I want to move on to January 6th. Tell me about the morning. He says, well, it was pretty ordinary morning. We were to meet down in Syracuse down at Matt Green's house. And so we met and I parked the car. I took two vehicles down. Matt Green took his truck. I took mine. And my roomie named Hart came. And you're talking about the 5th now, right? He says, oh, yeah. I am talking about the 5th. So he says, okay, let's go back to then. He says, when you were in North Carolina, were you planning to go to DC then? No, actually. He says, no, not at all. So now you're on January 5th. When you were on January 5th, the day before, were there any plans to conspire with the Proud Boys at that time? No, he says, our only plans were to storm the liquor store. Well done. The only insurrection I had in mind was the liquor aisle. Our only plans were to storm the liquor store. Did you have any plans to enter the Capitol? No, not at all. On January 5th now. Yeah, on January 5th, we got here at about 5:30 at night. Green had rented a place at the JW Marriott. Nobody ever ended up going to Harry's. There was some music outside the hotel room. Yeah, okay, interesting. So tell me about the morning of January 6th. On the morning of January 6th, at that time, did you develop plans to storm the Capitol? Pezzola says no. No plans. Okay. At about 9 a.m., a message came through on one of the chats, Boots on the Ground chat. Meet at the monument at 10 a.m. There were 5 of us in that room. We were doubling up. So we went to the monument about 10 a.m. We basically stood around there for a while. We didn't know anything of what was going on. Nobody had any idea what was going on. And I was with William Pepe and New York State Proud Boy president, not my president. I was with Green, but in some of the videos, I don't see him. Were you with Art? Yeah, Art. He says, I don't think so. Arthur Lasham? I don't think so. And Ronnie, were you with Ronnie? He says, yeah. Yeah, his name was Aaron. Now, who was in charge at this march? I guess I'd say it was Ethan. Probably because he was at front. And Ethan Nordine is a co-defendant Proud Boy in this trial. Yeah, I guess it was probably Ethan, I guess. I didn't know who Biggs was. I knew him from social media, but I didn't even recognize him that day. Dominic, did you have any plan to enter into illegal activities with other Proud Boys? No. Did you have any plan to storm the Capitol? No. Did you get to the point on this day where people were taking pictures? He says, yeah. Yeah, the main group I was with, me, Green, Art, Ronnie, we saw everyone get ready to take pictures. We were all listening to Trump's speech over the radio. We were upset. We were walking away from Trump's speech. And you got to the reflecting pool at some point. When you got there, what did you do? He says, well, they all lined up for a picture. You're not going to see me in the picture. We were pissed, man. We came from Trump's speech. We said, this is ridiculous. And so we just hung around. We gave a quick prayer. Then the group went this way and we went the other way, back down Constitution. Me, Green, Aaron, and Arthur. It was about 11:15, 11:20 maybe. We walked down Constitution and everybody had to use the bathroom. So most of the porta potties were locked up. And so we're all scrambling to go pee. So we stopped at a CVS and I got chips. Made my way back to the monument, insurrection chips. You have to be fueled up before you take over the country. And you can't have a full bladder either. So he went, relieved himself, got the chips before he was going to take over the country. Perfect. Made his way back to the monument ellipse area to see Trump's speech. Started seeing a big crowd. Did you see Trump's speech? He says, no, actually, I got lost for about an hour. For about an hour and a half, then we started walking back, and then I saw people coming down the street. It looked like the speech was already over. but we could hear the speech still going, but it seemed like something going on. So we walked into the crowd for a while, made our way back towards the Capitol. Four of us got towards the peace circle, and we think, where's the rest of the guys? We saw orange hats over there near the food trucks, and so made our way there. Dominic, did you have any plan or conspiracy to storm the Capitol at that time? Food truck time? No. Those chips didn't make you want to insurrect? No. Did you have any agreements to do anything to the Capitol at all? No. So, okay, so you saw the orange hats making their way towards the bigger group, and you assumed that's where the rest of the guys were. And so the orange hats were at a monument in the morning. Pezzola is saying this. He says, I saw them, so I knew they were Proud Boys. And I pointed out guys with the orange hats, and I started making my way over towards the food trucks. I mean, we were hungry. Those chips didn't cut it. We veered from circle towards the trucks. So we were looking around, we were browsing the trucks. What do they have here? Oh, what all grilled cheese again, Sheesh, nachos, okay, food trucks. Come on. And then you get to the good stuff, whatever those were. But then, and there's a line out the door, and everybody's like, oh gosh, do we want to wait in this line for that amazing thing? Or, yeah, we do. All right. So browsing the trucks, but then they heard commotion and heard everyone get real loud. The crowd started moving forward. Uh-oh. Did you see a picture from Matt Green's phone? Well, that's where I saw the orange hats. What time was that picture? He says it was at 12:50, 41 seconds. I remember checking. Where were you at that time? He says, look, I don't want to misstate this. I didn't know what the peace circle was. I believe it was a monument in that picture. I think it was 100 yards from the truck. So the picture of us was at 12:51. Dominic, when did you get to the peace circle, which is where the first breach happened? He said, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes after that picture. 5, 6 minutes, maybe. It wasn't a long time between us heading to the food trucks and holy crap, what's going on? Things got bad quickly. Says, I want to show you a picture of this video, X306. Prosecutor says, no objection. We'll allow it in. They play part of the video, 9:20 to 9:42. Pezzola is describing it. He says, yeah, that's William Pepe. He's the president of the Hudson Valley chapter. The other guys in the video, those are New York guys, Proud Boys. Pezzola says, that's me right there. There's two more guys over there, HV guys, Hudson Valley guys. And he says, here's another guy. Now another HV guy. He says, oh my gosh. Dominic Pezzola says, yeah, so Hudson Valley guys, president over there, two more of those. That's me. Says, I'm talking to Ray Epps, who is a suspected government operative right there. Hudson Valley president. That's me. That's Ray Epps, a suspected government operative. Prosecutor freaks out. Objection, move to strike. Judge says, stricken. You're not allowed to say that in this trial. I'm talking to that guy. You asked who the people are. Who are these people? Now, this is a defense question, so they're not going to let them get into it. Outstanding, Dominic Pezzola. Outstanding question, outstanding answer. Oh, that guy? That's Ray Epps, suspected government operative. Now, the defense says, I want to jump to the second breach area. Moving on. This is near the black metal fence. Yeah, I ran up this way. I was there with my guys. Somebody said we should find Pepe. So I ran up to find him. I slowed down. I started walking with him. And Roger says, Metcalf's kind of jumping around the timeline. I'm having a hard time following him. So now we're in the West Plaza after breach 2. Okay, so now we sort of fast way forward. Yeah, okay, right here in the video, he says, I was watching other protesters bandage up the face of Joshua Black. This person was struck in the face with rubber bullets, basically. Blood all over the place and a big gaping hole in his face. And we heard in previous testimony that there were cops who were targeting people who were down in the crowd and calling him out, saying, gray hat. And then a cop would say, they'd fire, they'd click it, and then they'd say, boom, when they hit the person. And they said, boom, boom. And we had a witness from the defense come in and say, this is what was happening, and explained all of that to us. And we were wondering why the cops were shooting people in the face. Did they need to do that or not? Because we know that they don't do that in other protests where there are favored people on their side who are doing the protesting or the rioting or the insurrecting in various capitals around the states now. They're not shooting people in the face, but today they were. So now jumping backwards in time, they go back to 10 minutes in. Metcalf says, all right, you see Ray Epps right here? You see Ray Epps here? He says, yeah. And they're marching towards the peace circle together. We've seen this video many times. Pezzola says, yep, that's me. That's Matt Green. That's Joshua Black. He's being patched up. In this video, it's right before when Joshua Black got shot in the face by the cops. This video is seconds before Black was shot. There were two officers shooting from above. And this is part of the reason why Dominic Pezzola is going to grab the shield, is because cops are raining down projectiles on mostly peaceful protesters at that time who are standing around, not even inside the Capitol. So the defense asks, is this Matt Green? He says, yeah. I'm near Green somewhere. Green's over here. The commotion started over here. And so everyone, the same effect when we see a car crash, we wanted to see what was going on. All right. We started making our way over to the commotion. It was just curiosity. This is before he got shot. So the video is playing and he says, okay, there it is. He just got shot. You can see him turning away real quick because the bullet is hitting him in the face. Dominic says, hey, Steve, this is his attorney. Steve, I'd like to point out that the crowd was completely separated from the police right now. There's no pushing. There's no shoving. There was a scuffle that had de-escalated. He says, so from my training, that kind of force, objection, sustained. You're not qualified as an expert. What do you can't opine on that. Now, gosh, I wish we would have stuck with that a little bit. Do you see what he's saying? There is no pushing. There's no shoving. There's nothing. His next point was going to be that things got rowdy when they started shooting into the crowd and hitting people in the face. But the defense moves to a different topic. Let's see if we come back to this. He says, when you saw the food trucks, did you see any flags? I don't remember seeing any flags. Lots of flags in the video, flying all over the place. When you were at the march, you didn't see any flags? He says, no. But at that point, we started seeing flags. At that point behind me, there were a ton of them. Now, where do you travel after you got the shield? He says, backwards, towards the wall right here. Did you see a bunch of flags at that point? He says, yeah, I did. And did this guy with a yellow flag get shot? Did you see this guy with the yellow flag get shot? He says, yeah, I did. He was just holding a flag and he got shot. I believe he got shot in the chest. You mentioned that you had some training in the Marines. Yeah, overseas, there would be mass protests around embassies or whatever. They'd train infantry guys to deal with mass crowds and, what to do and what not to do. And so in the moments leading up to Black getting shot, he says, yeah, there was a skirmish. There was pushing. The police had riot shields and things like that. I didn't see any fists being thrown, just pushing. And for my training, pushing against riot shields is not even non-lethal force. They're just saying there, this is standard riot protest stuff that doesn't deserve being shot at in the face. But then, the defense says, but then you saw headshots. What? Yeah, the shots were more towards up here, pointing at the screen, where the crowd was pushing police. But they de-escalated. At that point, there should not have been any more shots. There should have been a superior, and the prosecution objects. Objection, Your Honor, to the expert nature of this testimony. He's not qualified to do this. The judge says, well, let me hear counsel. The defense says, well, it's his opinion on what's happening there. Objection sustained. He can't opine on that. They don't want him to talk about how the police aggravated the crowd, how they started shooting people in the face, blowing holes in their cheeks, and then exacerbating a volatile situation with zero apparent, recourse or capabilities to prevent anything, from happening there inside the Capitol. Maybe because they wanted it that way, and maybe because Ray Epps and all of the other informants had a role. We don't know. But he is not allowed to get into it. They want to shut him up on that. Pezzola comes back. He says, after I saw Black get shot in the face, I was making my way from here to here, moving around on the screen. I got a first-hand bird's eye view of the damage done. He was shot. If he had been shot a couple inches higher, it would have been fatal. Now, the defense shows Pezzola a picture of a non-lethal munition weapon. What do you know this weapon to have done? He says. Objection, sidebar. Defense comes back and rephrases. Did you see where the shots were coming from, Dominic? He says, yeah, they were coming right from an overwatch position. We've seen where officers had non-lethal weapons. They were elevated, shooting down. It sounded like dozens, but it was at least 12. They were just shooting. He says, to me, it almost felt like we were under sniper fire. Someone from an elevated position with a strategic advantage was firing down into unsuspecting targets. And from that elevation, he says, you can only basically be headshot. I had to fear for my life. I said to myself, an inch or two higher and Black would have been dead. Dominic, are you able to tell which one of those guns shot Black in the face? At the time, no. Now, it's the gun on the left, he said. Objection, sustained. Is this the gun you observed being used to shot Joshua Black in the face? Says the defense. And do you like how we keep hearing that phrase? Every time we hear somebody being shot, it should be shot in the face, because that's much more dramatic. And it's true. And judge says, all right, enough of this. Let's go to the phones. Defense comes back. Dominic, how many guns were shooting down? He says there were two from right there from that position. Is this one of those guns? He says, yeah, it is. What does the warning on this gun say? It says, use with extreme caution. Headshots may cause injury or death. Do not shoot in the face or head on the gun. Pezzola says, yeah, my first reaction when this was going on was a disbelief that this type of force was being used on an unarmed crowd just pushing against riot police. Yeah, because we have historical precedent here. In fact, we had the summer of that year where there was a lot of mayhem, by some estimates, billions of dollars of damage relative to the $2.7 million of damage that was done in the Capitol building. It's an exponential difference between what happened in 2020 and what happened at the White House, at the Congressional building. And we had two different reactions from people in both political parties. The hysterics in DC melted down over Congress, but the people in the White House, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and many others, were supporting bail and releasing the violent criminals who were the people who were conducting mayhem all throughout the summer of love in the years in the BLM riots in those months. But now it is appropriate to use deadly force on the same protesters who are doing very similar behavior because it's the Trumpers. My first reaction was disbelief. How could they be doing this? It's an unarmed crowd, riot police. After they shot Black in the face, they turned into a more dire situation. It became deadly, more concern, and there was a palpable feel of panic in the air. Nobody can go anywhere, right? It's a big crowd. They're lobbing projectiles into the crowd. People's faces are being blown off, dropping down to the ground. He said it's almost a surreal moment. I've been in the military, but I didn't get to go to war. And I was injured before the unit deployed. This was in my mind what combat would be like. People were being shot by enemy snipers in a nest or a machine gun nest. And the defense plays another video. Dominic says, yeah, I'm right there in that video. Matt Green's right behind me. Is this the area where Black was shot and where all the blood was? He says, yeah, blood was right there. I was looking down. Now I'm telling the police that they're striking people in the face and they're going to kill someone. You can see me, he says. I'm right there. You can see me try to separate this man and that man. I'm telling the cops, hey, you're going to kill someone. I push this individual and I push this individual apart. You can see me on the screen. My intention was to grab one of these guys to prevent the situation from re-escalating. He says, right there, I'm ducking from bullets. I'm hearing loud noises and chaos. The bullets were very audible. It seemed like rapid fire. I remember one passing fairly close right in front of my face. And there, right there, I'm looking at a big pool of blood from Joshua Black's injuries. He says, my training, not even just my training, my entire life experience, including boxing for 20 years, always keep your eye on the danger. Human beings have fight or flight responses. And depending on the person, you either run or you fight for survival. In the military, you're on the front lines. You're confronting the enemy head on. You're conditioned to resist the flight response. You need to keep the eye on where the threat is coming from. And so if you're going to turn around and run and tuck tail, you'd be shot in the back in a combat situation. The first thing anyone does when coming under fire is to get low, find some kind of cover to protect yourself. And that's exactly what I was doing. Okay. I was crouching. I grabbed the first thing I could find to protect myself. That was Officer Odie's shield. And so I grabbed it and I pulled on it. The defense says, well, what was going through your mind? He says, it's not like I woke up that morning and thought, hey, a riot shield would look great in my den. My intent never was to take or rob or steal anything like that. My intent was to protect myself. Yeah, but Dominic, why didn't you just turn around and run away? Yeah, what I just told you. He says, my military training, you're conditioned to run towards the danger, neutralize the danger. They say, did you see Matt Green get shot? So at some point, I remember a projectile exploding on him. And Green stayed close to you? He says, yeah, that's accurate. So the defense says, I want to put this video back up. And now I want to focus on this guy. I want to focus on whether the guy behind you gets a shot. This guy right here. Did he get a shot? Yeah, right behind me. I saw him get a shot, and Matthew Green also got shot. And there's the cloud I was talking about right there. This guy also gets shot. So in the video, something's poofing up. Cops are boom, 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 boom. And he's freaking out. This guy's face got blown off. This guy behind him got shot. We got Green next to him gets impacted by something that explodes. So this guy's in the middle of mayhem. There's hundreds or thousands and thousands of people there. And now we have this situation where he can't escape. So he just grabs his shield. He's like, what the hell's going on here, man? He said that they actually even shot one of their own officers in the process too, which is great. I wonder what January 6th defendant got arrested for that one. The defense says, describe the process of getting the shield. So I grabbed onto the shield, okay? I pulled on it. I pulled it a little into the crowd. I fell over a step and I landed flat on my back without the shield. Others fell with me. Another man you can see in the video pushes me out of the way, leans forward. He comes up and he has a shield in his hands. The defense says, okay, well, let's pause a minute. Let's watch this first, and then we're going to go to the other video. Says, is that blood on the floor? Dominic says, it is. Here's the man in the black with the W. He's moving forward, and he's the first one to come up with the shield. Says, I was on the floor for several seconds before any of this happened. Defense attorney pauses the video. Right here, right here. Do you have possession of the shield right here at this time? I'm not sure. I'm under the shield. This guy here grabbed it from the officer, and I grabbed onto it to help boost myself up. Video plays forward. And you're still on the ground here? Yeah. And is that when you picked up the shield? Yeah, it was leaning vertically, and that's when I used it to push myself up. Okay, so the shield is like this on the ground, vertically. It's kind of propped up on something. Pezzola's on the ground, and so he's laying there, and he reaches up and he grabs his shield and he lifts himself up and uses it as a boost. Defense attorney rewinds it. Oh, yeah, kind of looks like that. Did you have any communications at all with Joe Biggs? He says, no, no idea. No idea what he even looked like. How about Nordine? No communications with Nordine. I knew what Nordine looks like. He's a big guy. but that's it. And the judge says, all right, that's a good time for a break there. Defense, we're going to be excusing the jurors until 1 p.m. for lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your lunch. Don't talk about the case, and we'll see you back in here after lunch. And we fast forward through the miracle of live tweeting. Thank you, rparloff. Judge Kelly is back. We're waiting for the jury to come back, and the judge is now asking Mr. Biggs how his foot is. Hey, Mr. Biggs, how's your foot doing? You've been in custody for several years. And Pattis says something, but we can't hear it. Jury comes back in. Metcalf is back on direct exam with Dominic Pezzola. He says, all right, Dominic, now, before we get back to the Shield, what did you do after the Shield? Did you meet Charles Donahoe? Yeah, I did. At the time, I didn't know who he was. And so after I picked up the Shield, I was standing back. Me and Matt Green, Charles said, oh, you got a Shield. We went back to the wall and he wanted to take a picture. He went by Yut then. He asked me, are you a Proud Boy? I knew nothing about him until I got arrested. So there's a picture of you and Donahoe, this guy right here. And that's all you guys said to each other was just, hey, are you a Proud Boy? Can we take a picture? You got a Shield. That's it. Did you have any discussions with Donahoe about entering the Capitol? No. Did you have any discussions with Donahoe about a conspiracy? No. And tell me about this video. He says, well, in this video, we were there for a minute. And we can't see the video. Maybe they're inside the Capitol. We don't know. Tell me what's happening. He says, well, we were there for a minute. We began seeing flashbangs going off, total saturation of adrenaline in the body. Things were almost like on autopilot. I was in reactionary mode. So I went back into the crowd to see if I could assist. You know, there were flashbangs were being thrown over the first rank of protesters into a second line of protesters who were literally just protesting. Flashbang to me is a less powerful grenade like a handheld projectile. You're not supposed to throw overhead into a crowd. It could still be lethal. They're supposed to be rolled on the ground, not even toward feet. Okay, it's a powerful explosive. Have you seen the video I'm showing you? Asks the defense. He says, yeah. The video starts playing. It's playing. It's playing. Dominic says, stop right there. This item right there, that's the flashbang. It looks like a regular grenade. You see it? Yeah, it's being thrown into the air against any kind of protocol I've ever... Objection! Not an expert. He can't see that. He can't qualify that, right? He can't say whether the cops should do that or not. He's just saying they did it. And the defense attorney is going to try to get him back on track and says, okay, yeah, did you see it explode? He said, yeah, exploded high in the air near someone's face. But now you have a shield, right? He says, yeah. But can I say something? He says, I see the flashbang here being thrown into this area and no one here is even engaging with the police. So why are they throwing flashbangs into areas where nobody's even engaging with the police? But to make this into a chaotic, riotous event. He says, here, this is an example of an elderly woman I saw in the crowd. Yesterday, I said children. I meant a teenager or two who were there with their parents. And it comes with a loud bang that could damage ears. I have 3 girls in my life, and I really get aggravated about that. Another video is played. They say these were flashbangs being thrown over the head of any potential aggravators and finding in vicinity of innocent men and women who were doing nothing more than trespassing. It says, I believe you can even hear the protesters saying it's a war zone out here. I hear 3 or 4 flashbangs in these videos. Flashbangs going off. Another video. Same vicinity. On the West Plaza now, after the metal fence breach and before the scaffolding breach. More flashbangs. What's happening here? He says, oh, here they're being thrown directly in the vicinity of a woman. He says, it's just something I don't tolerate. Objection sustained. Did you see bangs being thrown back by a protester? He says, yeah, there was a flashbang being thrown back by a protester. Severely risky decision. That could have killed him. And while you were here, how many flashbangs do you remember visibly seeing? Dominic says, wow. Well, I'd testify to seeing and hearing upwards maybe a dozen or so in that short time. I proceeded to make my way up here on the video where I perceived a majority of these going off. And so my instinct was to just protect somebody. At that point, the crowd was whipped up into a complete frenzy. People were pissed. They were wary. They were nervous. I was in fear. Any moment I could be hit with one of these. And so the video keeps playing and he says, "You're not leaving, right?" "No." "You're going up now?" He says, "Yeah, I was pissed off, Steve. My adrenaline was so high at this point. You're on autopilot. I guess I'm just programmed to just charge at danger. I don't." And his defense attorney says, "Was yelling at the cops the right thing to do?" "No, it wasn't." "Did you end up breaking a window, Dominic?" He says, "Yeah. Yeah, more of the confusion and the chaos and the mayhem that day." He says, "Look, it was stupid. It's not something I'm proud of. It happened. What can I say?" The whole time, he says, "They were shooting and flashbangs. I didn't have control of my actions." Did you ever conceive that you'd be breaking windows and breaking into the Capitol? Did you ever think that was going to happen in your life? "No," he says, "no. It surprised me when I did it. All throughout the day, hearing that we're going into the Capitol, especially after flashbangs, it wasn't until I saw another kid break the window next to me that I thought, all right, this is what we're going to do. So I broke the one pane of glass. I remember the architect explaining how the window is four separate panes, two upper, two lower. Each is separate and can be replaced. Each is $774. The right side pane was completely destroyed. Someone threw a 2x4 through it. I don't think anyone would leave it that way in their home. That's how I got the idea. So I broke the one on the left, and at that point, I was no longer with Matt Green." He said, at this point, it was just like an every man for himself kind of situation. The defense asks him, "Now, when did you separate from William Pepe?" Dom says, it's tough to say. When I got the shield, Matt Green was the only one who I was still with. And then I got separated from him at the scaffolding. I was with Donahoe for a few minutes. At the window, I was separated from everyone else that I'd been with. The entire time in the Capitol, I was just separated from everyone. When I got in, I had no idea what to do. I got a phone out. I started taking pictures. The last time I was near the Capitol, I was 8 years old. I had no idea what was going on. I had no knowledge of Mike Pence. I had no idea what they could have been doing. It was just madness. Did you believe that your actions, Dominic, would stop the vote count? No, that never crossed my mind. All right. He says it was a bad reaction to a bad situation. My reaction was bad. Yeah. He said, "Everyone has seen you smoking a cigar in a selfie video. Yeah. He said it was going to be a historic day. I said "we" in that video. It's like I'm a diehard New York Giants fan. So I'd say we won the Super Bowl one time. I heard an officer say, one time I heard an officer say, "You guys can stay as long as you're peaceful." And so in that video, I said, I knew we could take this thing over. I never said anything about stopping a vote. After that, I walked up a flight of stairs. I went down. I was only in there maybe 20 minutes. The defense says, "Can you tell me about your interaction with this person called Doug Jenkins?" "Yeah, there were people running up the steps. I saw a confrontation, and Doug Jenkins was having a confrontation with an officer. I was focused on the other officer." "You heard an officer, Dominic, say that you could stay if you were peaceful?" He says, "Yeah, people started spreading that. A guy with a megaphone said, 'I just talked to the police and they said we can stay as long as we're peaceful.'" "Did you call anyone, Dominic?" He says, "No, the phones weren't working at all. Even our radios were completely dead. I was trying to get a hold of a couple guys I was going back to the hotel with. Only one of them had a room key, though. And after the video, I was getting ready to leave. I saw a group of police there. I handed the shield back to one of them and I said, 'This would have never happened if you hadn't started shooting people in the face.' I left through the door by the window. When I got out, I bumped into a guy from HV and Art was standing out there too. We had a smoke and left. Left the Capitol 2:36 p.m. From what I've seen, got back to the hotel within the hour. There were a few side rallies we might have checked out. I don't remember." They play another video. He says, "That's you in the circle right here, right?" Dominic says, "Stop. Yeah. I was right here. Right here. I was flat on my back. Officer Odie was here. And this man with a black jacket with a W on it was reaching down right now. He's reaching forward to grab the shield, and he comes up with the shield in an upright position. Pezzola says right here in the video is when he's starting to go down. So he starts pushing people out of the way. And you're on the ground right now? Well, I'm being pushed back. He reaches forward to where I was. He reaches down with his right arm and he comes up with it. Now he's reaching. You see him reaching? And the defense is saying, yes, I do. Yes, great job. And so Pezzola says, now I'm completely out of the picture. Right now, he's at the spot where Officer Odie fell. The video plays. Now, this other guy is coming with his other hand. He's over top of Officer Odie. I'm off the screen, and now he's starting to come up. And this is the side of the shield that he started picking up. He pulls it up and back, and that's how it comes near me. He says, stop, stop, stop. Go back a frame. Okay, this item right here, that's the side profile of the shield. There's even a still picture in evidence that shows him with his hands on it. He says, stop, go back, go back. Here's the other edge of the shield. He's got the shield in full control, right? He's got one hand here, and he's got one hand on top. So this guy's got his shield. And he says, that right there, that's Officer Odie who's getting off the ground. And Dominic is saying, as we're sitting here, you can still see rubber bullets are coming in. There's the shield right here. You can kind of see the indent right here. I'm still on my back at this point. Yeah, and that's me after being helped up by that guy. We fast forward a little bit. It's around that time that I take possession. He says, I really can't be certain of it. And so they're showing that this other guy really took the shield from the cops, and the shield was, not taken by Pezzola. It was fair game at that point because somebody else took it and he's being shot at. That's why he grabbed it. There's one still photo we found where a man in black still has his hands on it, and I'm grabbing it to help myself up. Is there anything else you want to add? He says, well, I got to the point where, the moments were deteriorating very fast. The atmosphere, Dominic says, it went from tense to terrifying. The adrenaline rush kicked in. I was in fear for my life. I thought I wasn't going to make it home tonight. After I saw the injury that those bullets did to Josh Black's face, I just stood there in shock. The defense says, can we rewind a little bit? So after you ended up going in which direction? He says, I believe I just made a direct line back from the best of my recollection. Is this the first time you were treated? Well, that wasn't my intention. Donahoe suggested we go in and take a picture. Donahoe is suggesting we go back in and take a picture, and Judge Kelly chimes in and he says, all right, this is a good spot to stop, everybody. One of the jurors has a medical appointment, and so we're going to be excusing early for the day. The jury is excused. Dominic Pezzola steps down. They take a 10-minute recess, and they come back in. Now, the judge says, boy, you can really tell what people in the gallery care about. He's commenting on the fact that everyone's left, but he can't see us in the media room, which is pretty full. So I guess he's saying, okay, everybody left. They just wanted to see the testimony. But he says that Roger's saying we're still here. Says, I think we're waiting for 4 defense lawyers. I won't name names. Now everyone's back. These defense attorneys are late. I wonder who that was. Here, they're all here now. The judge starts with the issue of whether theft should be charged as a lesser included of robbery. So they're going to get into some details on it. The prosecutor is arguing. They have some brief discussions. Whatever it is they're talking about, it's now moot. All right, prosecutor withdraws it. So the whole thing was moot. I'm glad we didn't sit here and read that. They're now discussing the meaning of the word corruptly in the statute. Judge Kelly didn't say aloud which definition he's proposed, but the government doesn't have a problem with it, of course. Kelly appears to have rejected the defense request to adopt the definition of corruptly, urged by Judge Walker in the concurring opinion. He's going to be issuing a brief explanation on it in writing, which we'll be able to read. He thinks he's not bound by that concurrence. Without the current draft instructions, yeah, it's hard to see what they're talking about. They're talking about jury instructions. Now, the question goes to the prosecutors. All right, government, how long do you think it's going to take you to cross-examine Dominic Pezzola? Kinnearson responds, 2.5 hours, maybe half a day. There's going to be some redirect. As things stand right now, we don't anticipate any rebuttal case, though that depends on what the rest of Pezzola says. And so Judge Kelly says, wow, okay, we are making some good time, but I am a little bit skeptical that we're going to get to closings tomorrow. But the prosecutor says we're prepared if we need to. We'll go tomorrow at 5 p.m. Closings will probably start on Friday. Woo, boy. Closing arguments. Hernandez says, Your Honor, before we leave for the day, I'd like a written response from the government to my request about assurances about Isaiah Giddings and Real and about the use of the pepper spray. Prosecutor says, Judge, I'm not going to give her one beyond this statement today. Defense says, well, if that's the case, I'm also moving to strike the government video exhibit that contains a transcript attributing the voice saying F 'em to Real. And we don't know what the judge ruled, but the judge recesses until 9:15 tomorrow. And these are some more text messages. And that's it for the day. So court starts tomorrow, 9:15-ish a.m. Roger Parloff is on Twitter at Roger Parloff. We're very grateful for the live tweeters out there, for the people who are covering this and bringing us the day's events from inside the courtroom. We wouldn't be able to do any of it without them. So shout out to Roger Parloff and Brandy Buckman and everybody else who is live tweeting this. Make sure you're giving them a follow at rparloff. But that, my friends, is it for the Proud Boys trial. We are in day 58. Dominic Pezzola is still on the stand. We'll be back tomorrow. He'll have more direct examination and then cross-examination before we get to closing arguments, which may come as soon as Friday, which will be very interesting to follow. Hopefully you join us as we continue to cover it. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing wherever it is you're watching it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends, that is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground in the house. Day 58 of the Proud Boys trial, featuring our friend Ray Epps, who just keeps popping up everywhere, for crying out loud. And we also understood a little bit more about what is going on in jury selection with the Trump case. And so think about this. I mean, if the Trump trial goes, we could have closing arguments in Proud Boys Friday, probably get a verdict Monday, and then start the Trump civil trial, which is really, it's kind of like a pseudo criminal trial because she's alleging that he AR'd her in a department store a long time ago. So the timing, if we get a verdict, might work out, perfectly. And we can just transition between trials. And they're going to be very related. I think that the Proud Boys trial, if they are convicted, will ultimately be used against Donald Trump to maybe even prosecute him under the same charge, seditious conspiracy. We'll see. So we've got a lot in store to get to, and I hope you join us. Thank you for being here with us as we went through the day's activities. Now let's see what you have to say about it from our YouTube friends, our Rumble friends, our Twitter friends. And then, of course, we're going to go to our members only after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. But let's see who is in the house this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Wednesday. Who is kicking us off? Patrick Parker is here. Says that does not look like pepper spray. Yeah, I don't know really what it was. It seemed like a very grainy image with a lot of artifacting in it. Ray Epps was standing right there. I mean, if they want to get, if they want to charge somebody with other crimes, I'm wondering why they didn't charge him. Thank you, Patrick. Andy says the QAnon shaman is now in a halfway house in Phoenix, I believe. You should interview him, LOL. So Andy, I'd love to talk to him, to be honest. And maybe we can set that up at some point. I imagine he's quite overwhelmed right now, and I certainly want to be empathetic and understanding to that. I'm going to imagine he's got probably people who are beating the door down to talk to him. And I don't want to be the person who is, that person. I'd like to give him some space to recover because I've worked with a lot of people who have been in these positions, and I know what a really traumatic thing it is. So, I hope that he gets some peace and some calm and some recovery. He's going to have a lot of trauma to deal with and just a bunch of work to do. So at some point, I think, I do hope that he is healed enough and open enough to be okay talking about it. And if we could help in that in any way, I'd love to do that. But I also do follow his attorney at Shipwrecked Crew on Twitter. And he has said that he's basically not doing any media interviews and stuff like that for a while. But certainly, I'd love to talk to him and get his take on this. And maybe that will happen one day. It's a great suggestion, Andy. Thank you for being here. And Andy's in Arizona too, right? So maybe we'll have to, connect in some way in that regard. P-Dub says, if that was mace or bear spray, look at Epps's face. Wouldn't he have some reaction to being close to a nozzle and the stream? Another good point, P-Dubs. Why is Ray Epps sitting there like he's, sipping a cup of coffee or something? This is a wild insurrection here. Wow, this is crazy. Obviously, if that was pepper spray coming across his face, you'd think he would have a reaction. He didn't. Very astute observation from P-Dubs. Michael Allen Hughes says, our government's voyeurism is unhealthy for us. Gosh, is that the truth? Michael Allen Hughes. You're right about that. It's unhealthy for them. It's unhealthy for everybody. It's gross. But voyeurism is a great word for that. It's just the government. Thank you, Michael. Good to see you. Voice of the People says, hey, I'm seeing some more familiar names in your chat. I still don't understand why this trial isn't being talked about more. This is wild. Well, I don't think anybody in the media really wants to talk about it. The Republicans are basically done with January 6th. I don't expect to see any more of those videos or really anything else coming from them. I think this McCarthy to Tucker thing was probably the end of it. It seems like it's pretty much dead. They are much more focused on the Trump prosecutions than they are anything to do with J6. The media feels like they want it gone and buried. The Republicans want it gone and buried. The Democrats want it gone and buried, which is why I think a lot of people are not apprised of all the disgusting things that we've covered here. But that's why we're grateful for you, Voice of the People, and everybody in the chat, and everybody's sharing this stuff and saying to people, hey, this trial is nuts, and inviting them over here or sharing a short with them. It's a really good way to help people get more familiar with what we do here. Sharing a short 1-minute snippet so that they can see it, maybe send them the 50 CHS shorts and just, did you know this? Did you know they have 50 CHSs and only 5 defendants in this trial? But it's good to see you, Voice of the People. Glad you're here. And I appreciate that super chat. This is a wild trial. And part of the other reason I think it doesn't get that much attention, if we could broadcast it, like if they live stream the trial, or even if we had audio, I think it'd get more attention. But maybe sometimes people don't want to come and hear somebody just read through a bunch of tweets. I can understand that too. But all right, let's see who else is over. And thank you to our YouTube friends. And thank you to Dolphin Fan, who invited some amazing members over. If you're a YouTube member, make sure you grab the Telegram link and join us in our after party. Now, we also want to say hello to our friends on Twitter and on Rumble. We got some good friends in the Rumble chat. Let's give some shout outs. Hey, Alan Harkins here. What's up, Alan? Hey, sweet. Let's see what Alan had to say. Alan's here. He says, hey, I missed a few of your shows. I was on another cruise with Dad. Amazing. Says, I met a couple who watch you. How small is the world? Keep up your awesome, heartfelt work. You're one of the good ones. Man, Alan, thank you so much for that nice comment. I appreciate you saying that. A cruise with Dad. That sounds fun. I'm curious where you went and what that looked like. Probably a ton of fun. And it's funny, another couple out there. Man, that's crazy. It is a small world. Shout out to the couple on the cruise. Hopefully you had an amazing time. It's always good to see you, Alan. And shout out to your dad. Shout out to your family. A cruise. That sounds interesting. Yeah, anyway, so thank you, Alan. Very generous of you. I appreciate that a lot. All right, let's see who is on Twitter. We got 2 viewers over there. Amazing. Let's see who is in the Twitter house. Monthly reminder for the chat. And I think we're understanding. I think I understand this. There's a picture of 2 coconuts here. If you use the phrase GIF with a hard G, GIF, right? Or if you use the word GIF, I don't even know what those are, but they look like little nuts. If you use GIF versus GIF. The word of the day on the show was indicia. Did I say the word indicia? This video shows you how to pronounce indicia. Let's see what they say.
Indicia.
Indicia. There you go.
Indicia.
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 There you go. It's a good word. Indicia, indeed. And so thank you to Paul Me No. Danny McWilliams says the judge is going to railroad Trump. It's not going to be a trial. It's going to make the Proud Boys trial look like a cakewalk just by what you just read. Andy says it's amazing how the justice system does not provide equal weights and balances. It is a pretty shocking thing indeed. Indeed. Here, Danny says that both of these trials are going to be like this guy saying they're going to be railroaded on the train, on the toot toot train. Good to see you, Danny. Hey, Amy Horrell. Amy is on the channel at P-Town 49. What's up, Rob? Do we know when this trial will end? I think it's going to be ending in, well, early next week. So closing arguments on Friday and then probably get a verdict Monday, Tuesday. I imagine it's going to be a quick verdict. Pumpkin Marie says there's no way to get a fair trial in DC. Why aren't more lawyers arguing for a change of venue? It's just not a common thing that happens. Change of venue. It's just not a common thing in criminal cases. So those, my friends, are our Twitter friends. And I always forget to be extra generous with our likes. And we like to be extra generous with those. So thank you for joining us over on Twitter. Thank you to our Rumble friends. And shout outs to Janek. We got NC Native. We got Indoctrination. Slightly Salty's in the house. Donut Mind Me. Fairy Dance. Slightly Salty. Vienticus Prime is over there. And of course, we're going over to locals for our after party where Adesia asks the lovely question, says, how many empty cans of bear spray did the feds find? It's a good question. I'd like to know that. And I'd like to know about the injuries too. How many broken bones, how many concussions from the police, how many stitches were required, how many lacerations, what were all the injuries, how much time was required off, all of the things. I'd like to know the details on all of it. What weapons did they find? What was the total, numbers assembled on all of the things they found? Because I don't think that the numbers add up. We've already talked about that a lot. But of course, my friends, that is it for us on the day. Thank you to everybody who is supporting the lovely show and the work that we do here with your super chats, your donos, your memberships, your likes, your shares. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. And we are going over to our after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We had another super chat that came in. Hey, we had another super chat came in from Tony Hay Munkets, and Vienticus Prime just alerted me to that. Thank you, Vienticus. And thank you to Tony Hay Munkets, who said, let's do a refresh, who said the Proud Boys rule. Man, they are in the middle of it right now, and they are facing some serious headwinds. And I think when this comes out, I think that there will be more people who, when we fast forward this, we may look at people like Jacob Chansley and the Proud Boys as martyrs and and heroes for having to go through this, having to be the victims of a psychotic government that is overly prosecuting people in the name of political ideology. Yeah, there will be consequences for what the government is doing here. So cheers to the Proud Boys and all the J6ers who are hanging in there as this goes on. There will be a long road ahead. Now, my friends, we are going to leave it there. So we're going to head on over to our after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Shout outs. Hey, to Andres Berzins is also in the chat and says, glad I made one live. Thank you for all the great work on locals. That was on Rumble. From Andresin. Here it is. Almost missed that one. My goodness. Andres Berzins says, glad I made one live. Thank you for all the great work. Well, thank you, Andres Berzins. I appreciate you, my friend. I'm glad you made it too. And we're getting some good activity on Rumble, man. I love this. I love it. We did a little after Rumble yesterday for some after stuff. Good stuff. All right. And thank you to Andres. And welcome to Tom, Kathy, Sassy, Monica, and Freed, all gifted memberships, courtesy of Dolphin Fan. Extremely grateful for you. And Doris D is now a member on YouTube. Welcome. And Ted Score Vanerick is also a supporter. We're getting some good YouTube memberships, man. Woo! That's going to be a lot of fun. Our morning member-only chats are getting extra filled on YouTube, on locals. We're getting to good stuff that we can't get to here because there's just not enough time. We spend time getting to it. And we're also going to our after party debrief. If you're on YouTube, get the Telegram link because you'll join us right there in one quick minute. Before we wrap up, don't forget to get your field of greens. We know there's some heavy lifting that we're going through covering these trials. We have to be fortified and nutrified with fieldofgreens.com. Use code Robert to save 15% off. The vegetables want to be eaten. They do. And you can buy some for your parent and just say, hey, Mom, did you take your vegetables today? See how she likes it. It's always fun. You can also grab these mind maps. If you like this mind map and you want to use this software, rather, check out spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap or /Trump if you want to see what the Trump mind map looks like. And you can create your own free account. Use this software. It's great. I use it for everything. Obviously, the show, which you see me use it for, but I use it for organization. I'll even organize basically everything. We have, a Genius Network debrief and stuff like we do with members. It really helps me keep things organized. So check it out, spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. Want to thank the mods who keep this nice and orderly and the train on the tracks as we go through the show. Big shout outs to Vienticus Prime, K Bean, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Geomancy Games, and Zach Nichols, along with John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me. And we've got John Allen and Zach Nichols, and we got Rumble mods and Telegram mods. The community grows by the day, and we're grateful for the mods who keep things nice and orderly. We want to thank also Sleepy Dog Lee and our friend Geegum on locals, Meme Smiths extraordinaire. And we're grateful for everybody who makes the show possible. But we are going over to our after party. So members, we'll see you in a short minute. Don't go anywhere. But everybody else, I hope to see you right back here tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's going to be Thursday. There's going to be a lot to get to. And we'll look forward to seeing you here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.